Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer, and today this is the Failures and Wins podcast. And today we have Mina on. We're going to go through his journey, how he got to this point, this Amazon mess is what I call it, how he got here. And eventually we're going to talk about some PPC, DSP stuff, and everything when it comes to Q4 on Amazon. It's a bloody battlefield out there when it comes to Q4. And we're going to try to talk the tactics, kind of navigate that battlefield and kind of go through with it. Mina, thank you so much for joining today.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share as much knowledge as I can. And I know Q4 is going to be wild. I know there's a lot of crazy things happening. So excited to share about everything.
Exactly. Thank you. Please tell us your story about how you got started into Amazon. Like how did you get up to the point where you did today?
Cool. So I'll try make this quick. I worked in corporate 9 to 5. I graduated as a chemical engineer and chemist. So I was working,
Wow.
as a chemical engineer for many years, and I just kind of really didn't like I just didn't like corporate, right? I just felt like I was going from job to job, and I was unhappy.
Yep.
And I've always been super passionate about supplements ever since I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
Or before that, I would go into the supplement stores and like look at every single supplement. Something drew me to supplements.
Okay.
And so I was on vacation in 2018 with my dad. I'm researching supplements like I always do, and he's like, dude, why don't you make your own supplements? I mean, you would make like good supplements. I said, I don't know, man, that sounds like it's very, very expensive to build a supplement business. And he's like, how much would it cost? And so I went down like the rabbit hole of like, what if I bought like raw bulk ingredients on Amazon and mixed them up at home, and then resold
Hmm.
them and with my own branding and everything, and creating an LLC. And it wasn't that much money. So I'm like, you know what? I'm
Hmm.
gonna do this because I was miserable. I was desperate. I wanted to get out of corporate. I just felt like I hated my life. And I'm like, what do I have to lose? Like, it's worth trying. So
Yeah.
I created a supplement brand. It was called it's active. It still makes me a lot of money. It's called MMA Nutrition. It was an electrolyte supplement. And it was based on the fact that I was on keto and I wanted a very high sodium, no sugar electrolyte powder and there was nothing on the market. There was like everything on the market was
Hmm.
like $30 for like 40 servings, and I was doing it for like $20 for 100 servings. And so I got the product listed on Amazon because I tried to sell it at gyms and stores, and it didn't work at all. And I was like, dude, why am I doing this when I'm buying all my supplements on Amazon? I hate going into Vitamin Shop and talking to the guys in there. So
Yeah.
I got it on Amazon and then got super obsessed, tried to figure every single thing out. And I noticed that two things were working for me: getting reviews and running ads, PPC. And so I'm like, this PPC stuff, dude, like I gotta figure this thing out. And so I
Yeah.
went deep dive, like the chemist slash chemical engineer in me came out. I started testing every single variable possible under the sun. I wasted, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars testing. And I was just literally recycling all of my money. Any money that I would make on the product, I would just put it back into the business. And I was doing this all on my credit card. And finally I was able to get a hang of it. And but 6 months later, my company that I was working at fired me. But
Wow.
by that time I was making $4,000 a month in profit on Amazon. And I'm like, you know what, dude, it's now or never. Like, let's just go all in on this. And I packed all my shit, I put it in a car, and I went to Egypt for 4 months to like save on
Wow.
my bills. Yeah, I mean, my family lives there, so I was like, let me just go chill with them for 4 months and see what's gonna happen. I was unhappy in Connecticut. I needed to like figure out my next move anyways. So I went there, and I just kept working harder and harder in the business, and I was doing like by the end of the 4 months, I was doing $10,000 a month in profit. But at that time, I started sharing my experiences about PPC with people in Facebook groups, and I was like, dude, I did this, and I launched this campaign, and this happened, and I was like a reporter sharing all of my whatever I was like. I was just like a scientist, because
Yeah.
I've been doing this. So people like love me, like, oh my god, Mina's like this Amazon genius. I'm like, dude, I'm not. Like, I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
saying it's right or wrong. Like, obviously when the outcome is bad, I'm sharing that it's bad. When the outcome is good, I'm sharing that it's good. And I started getting on podcasts and just like this, and you just sharing more and more of all of the value that I've accumulated through wasting my money in an attempt to basically save everyone else money and pain and all of this stuff. And I just blew up in the industry. And early 2021 or late 2020, an aggregator hits me up, and they're like, we need you to train our in-house team. Like, we really need someone good for PPC. And I'm like, sure, I can do it. They said, we want to test you on one of our brands. So they tested me on one of their brands. And then 4 months later, they said, we were testing six other agencies, and you just beat everyone out. And like, we definitely want to bring
Awesome.
you on. So I did that thing for them, and I'm like, dude, like, yeah, maybe I'm good at like having a supplement brand on Amazon, but I'm like so good at Amazon advertising. And so
Hmm.
I'm like, I got into business like to, live life on my own terms and add as much value to people, and then basically by adding so much value to people, get paid a lot of money, right? Because if you add like a ton of value to people, you're gonna get paid more money. And I knew
Hmm.
that I could make a bigger and more meaningful impact by doing PPC, because I know there's people starting their businesses, or people that need this help that I'm offering, that not a lot of people want to figure out, like this nasty PPC shit. So
Yeah.
I got into it, and we've grown like crazy, man. We've grown. I just checked the numbers. We've grown 700% year over year.
Awesome.
We went from 3 employees to 39 employees officially as of today. And I'm just loving what I do. I'm trying to add as much value to people in the world, and that's my story.
Wow. That is an awesome story. So when it comes down to when you go through your entrepreneurial journey, you eventually know your strengths and weaknesses. You have to. You are forced to know them. For example, like when it comes to typing out things like emails and things like that, I am a horrible communicator via text. Horrible, horrible. But when it comes down to actually communicating via words and video, I'm a very good communicator. So, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses that you kind of went through that you kind of saw in yourself? So, obviously, you're really good at the PPC side, but what are some weaknesses that you kind of saw, and how did you overcome those weaknesses?
I love that you asked that question, because I'm a huge, like, people say like hire to your weaknesses. I'm so against that, because it's
Really?
such a, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not against that. Obviously, you should always be hiring, but it's immediately implementing, like, oh, I'm so weak at this thing, like, let's, I can't do it anymore.
That's
So
true.
the first thing that I was incredibly weak at was accounting. I had I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of like finances overall, I wasn't strong at all. And I tried to like hire to my weaknesses and all of this kind of stuff, but I would always get like sloppy work, because number one, I didn't know how to interview people, because I mean, it was my weakness, right? So I didn't know shit, like if they were doing whatever, how would I know if it was good or bad? And I ended up always getting screwed. So what I did to overcome that was, I said, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm just gonna become like adequate at it. And I went on LinkedIn, and I researched a little bit, and I found like five or six companies that are actually like produce a lot of really good accountants and bookkeepers. I then messaged them on LinkedIn. I messaged about 50. Only four of them responded, and I'm like, can I please just pay you for an hour of your time? I'd love to learn about accounting. I paid for four of them. And one of them I vibed with. The other three I kind of didn't really vibe with. They were like very introverted and couldn't really talk. You know what I mean. Like they weren't.
As accountants are.
Yeah,
Yes.
they weren't gonna basically like teach me well. They knew what they were doing, they just didn't know how to teach it. And so I spent about 5 or 6 hours with this person, and she was showing me. She's like, this is how you build a P&L. This is what this means. This is what that means. This is. And after
Hmm.
that, I was actually pretty decent at doing it. Now, I didn't do it myself, but I went out and I tested a bunch of bookkeepers, and I found one that was really good, because basically I tested her. I said, prove to me that you know these things. Do this one thing for me. I'll pay for
Hmm.
it. And I paid her to do my books, basically one time. And she was like, you know what? And after I saw that, I'm like, you know what? This is a really good person. I hired her on. I put systems in place, and I oversaw what she was doing.
Hmm.
And now my accounting is like on point. It's like it's even more than on point. Like literally, you go into my P&L and you click here, it takes you to this sheet where the original numbers are. Click here, it takes you back to the P&L, and everything is super well integrated. And I could have never gotten there if I had just admitted like this is my weakness, hired to my weakness. Now, could I have hired a CFO? Right? Yeah, maybe. But who has 120K
That's
salary
true.
sitting around, here and there? So,
That's true.
and I continue to do that with all of my other weaknesses. So, being creative on Amazon was a huge weakness for me. And so, what I did was, I partnered with a few people who were really good at creatives, and we were kind of in like a group together. I would say, I'm good at PPC. I'm going to share PPC stuff. You're good at creative, share creative stuff. And she was constantly sharing out how she was split testing these different images, and how she was like getting inspiration from these other brands, and how she was using PickFood to compare herself versus her competitors and stuff like that. So this is another case of like identifying my weakness, finding people who are good at it, and then essentially finding a way to have them teach me until I'm adequate.
Yes, and I 100% agree with that. On the other side of the coin is, like, for example, when it comes to the organization, when it comes to like understanding things fast and going through there, I am very good. That's one of my strengths. But when it comes to organization of people and things, I'm very bad. I'm very bad at those things. And that's where I had to hire out project managers to help keep me organized and my employees organized. That I did hire out my weaknesses, and that was a huge thing for me. And like also like graphic design, I know those are going to be the best people that I suck at graphic design and they're really good. That's what they do on a daily basis. I know they're going to do better. And I did hire out for my weaknesses in that. But you had a really good point. You also you ask them to teach you it so that way you can learn to see what the performance is rather than just letting them do it all. Like I really like that. For example, when it comes down to graphic design, I know Photoshop really well. So if I really need to create a graphic, I can do it. So that what that does is it makes it where I'm an effective communicator for graphic designers. So I can say, hey, on this object, can you remove the background and do this one? Because I understand Photoshop really well. I could communicate to that person of exactly what I'm looking for. But if I didn't understand the skill, I would just say I don't like it, and I would just send it back, and they would go like, "What does he not like?" And so when you take the 10 minutes to learn the skill, you're able to communicate it better and give them exactly what you're looking for. So that was a really good point that you had there, about just asking and taking the time to like learn what they're doing and to teach you. That's a super super valuable skill because it helps you communicate at the end of the
Yeah, and
day.
it's honestly, it's not hard. Like it will genuinely, if you find a good consultant, it'll take you maybe 6 hours. And again, like this is 6 hours of your life that you're investing into becoming good at accounting, good at creative, good at like this, good at that. And I mean, if you spend 6 hours with me and I'm teaching you PPC, you're gonna get really good. That you're not gonna do it yourself, but if you hire an agency or if you hire an employee and they're like, and you're like, hey, like let's scale this month, and then they notice they haven't launched any campaigns, they haven't increased any
Yeah.
bids or whatever, you're like, dude, what are you doing? These are actions that you should be doing. But you know to ask
Yep.
that, versus like they're like, yeah, we're conquesting, and these people, right? They like use these complicated words and they say these fancy things, and you're like, you kind of leave confused, but you're like,
Yep.
you don't know enough to keep them accountable.
Exactly. And that's when you start listening to the people that are teaching you and help you actually understand rather than using complicated words. Like they're actually teaching you because when someone teaches you something, they know the subject very, very well. Like exactly what you said that when it comes to the accountant, you can have an accountant that knows exactly what is happening and able to do their job. But teaching requires another level, another skill set of understanding then take that knowledge of what they have and be able to communicate it is a whole other level of understanding. And when someone can teach you those things, they know it better than the back of their hand. That is what it comes down to. And that makes you a really effective. And that means when someone is teaching you and you are understanding it, that means they know it really, really well. But if someone's like, oh, we're doing a conquesting campaign to take all the highest bidding terms and putting them into manual campaigns, like yes, there's if you know your subject, you know what I'm talking about. But to any normal person, no, they have no idea what I just said.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's what I've noticed time and time again, because yeah, maybe I'm an agency, but I'm just like everyone else, right? I'm always looking
Mhm.
for help, and I've noticed every single time that someone has not been able to explain or makes it sound like big and confusing and very like non-tangible, non-actionable stuff, they're
Yes.
usually like bullshitting, and they're not
Yeah.
going to do a good job. And the ones that are like, listen, let me break it down for you, this is what's going to do this is, and I'm like, oh wow, like this is pretty simple. And then I'm like, wow, like okay, I'm ready to hire this guy. And it's
Mhm.
you're usually not paying for like some sort of secret sauce, you're just paying for the
Yeah.
execution. It's just
Exactly.
a system and bodies and talented skill that's going to do it.
Unfortunately, that's how most conferences are. You like there's a difference between rambling, like when people start saying all these things, like when they start saying like all these things about like just rambling, they're just talking about these concepts, but there's really no actionable takeaways. Like for example, I can talk to you an hour about PPC, but then I could say, "Hey, right now, this sponsor display ads and sponsor brand video ads are killing it right now. Everyone needs to be doing it." Now you're like, "Oh, I need to sponsor brand video ads. I need to look at those, like whatever it may be. It's a little bit more actionable rather than saying like you need to like be doing this and
Layering a
this. Yeah,
funnel and
yeah,
doing it, let's
yeah.
flip the funnel and let's layer the ads. And you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, this is not real. This is not real words.
Yes. And when they start talking about optimize for the customer experience, like if I hear that one more time, I'm gonna
Yeah.
blow my brains out.
Yeah.
Like these are the things that are
That's
constantly
the
very
answer when
surface level.
people. So when I first started, I used to ask people, I'm like, "How do you get reviews? How do you get reviews?" And they're like, "You have to optimize for the best customer." I'm like, that doesn't help me. Like, I don't know how can I optimize? Tell me.
Yes. Yeah, so there's a huge difference between like surface level knowledge and actual knowledge. And that's when you have to communicate it a certain way to rather than saying all this surface level crap is what I call it, and then just being able to dig down and say, "Hey, here's the actionable plan. This is how to do this. This is what you need to go do right now." And then people are like, "Whoa." And but what sucks is most people won't even go and do it. When you tell them the actionable stuff, 90% of won't do it. When I was a consultant for Amazon, like 95% says, "Hey, Victor, I'll pay you to do it. I don't care if it's whatever the price. Just go and do it for me." That's what most happens. Like when you're in a consultant, most people don't want to do it because you either have time or money. So
Yeah,
that's
that's me
usually how it
right
is.
now. And every time like someone thought, I'm like, who can I pay to do this? Like, come on, like find me some good person I can pay to do this.
Because you either have time or money. So
Yeah,
if you have the time, then you can get a consultant and it's going to be awesome for you. But if you have the money, you're just going to say, "Victor, just go do this crap. I don't want to worry about this because it's too
exactly,
complicated."
exactly.
Because I used to consult on external traffic, which is like a super complicated process. Keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
yeah,
Like when you start using mini chat flows and then like rankings and things like that, it's a very very complicated process. You have to do it right, or you'll get pinged and you'll get very hurt. So I had to communicate that to customers, and it was very, very difficult. Eventually, we got to a point where it's like, "Victor, I'm sorry, this is too complicated. Like, I'll pay you whatever just to do
let's
it."
do it. Yeah,
Um, so, like, when it comes down to it, I think more people should listen to when they're able to teach you. Like, you just realize you have a lot more knowledge when they're able to dumb it down for you. That means they have another skill set rather than rambling about advanced when they just throw out advanced words and it makes them sound smart. Don't always don't think that it's your fault that you're dumb because of those they're using advanced words. Usually they're just trying to trick you into thinking they know more. But in reality, if they teach you, then you take that as value, and then it's the same effect of like, wow, he knows what he's talking about, rather than just being confusing. Don't think it's your fault that you're confused. It's
correct.
definitely the person's talking fault. It's their fault.
Yeah, and listen, every time I try to shove anything under the rug and say, "Oh my God, like this is too hard for me to understand" or whatever, I've always been pinched. But when you get to a point where you're like, I know what's going on, I'm comfortable. These guys explain it to me, whatever. You hop on an interview with a freelancer, an employee, an agency, whatever it may be, and you have a conversation, and you're like, okay, I really feel like this person can do, and I understand what they're doing. So now I can, like now we can have this working relationship where we both understand each other. Then is the best time to move forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. The only problem is when you work with introverts, like they may know their crap, but you have to realize that some people are just bad communicators and just in general. And you have to keep in mind that, for example, for my PPC person, most likely they're going to be introverted because they're very developer brained. So
Hmm.
I usually look for a developer brain when it comes to my PPC stuff. But when it comes to a sales position, I need someone that's super fun, like able to communicate very, very well. So keep that in mind when someone's you're trying to teach someone. It's very rare that you'll get a developer brain person that knows dashboards and data and
A
is a
good
good communicator. Yeah,
communicator, yeah.
it's a very difficult to do both. So
It's a unicorn type of
it
thing.
is. Yes. Luckily, I was blessed with that. My dad is a very he's very data
They're
driven,
usually
and
business owners, if you
yeah,
haven't noticed.
true.
It's
Yeah.
usually those people become business owners. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Um, but yeah, that's basically the go about it. And when it comes to PPC, we got Q4 coming up. We know cost per clicks are going to go through the roof because last year through Q4 we had CPCs went huge. That was before we had a fall Prime Day. So now we have a fall Prime Day coming up. We have Turkey 5 coming up. We have Christmas, all these other things. What are the best strategies that you've seen so far to really decrease cost per click? And when it comes to either DSP, when it comes to the PPC side, what are you kind of seeing that decreases the cost per click a lot there?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two ways to, or let's talk about the all the ways that you can, basically get a better return on your investment for your ads.
Yeah,
The first and most simple one that I want to talk to that is always overlooked, and it's the one that people are like going to be like, oh, when I say it,
yeah,
is improving your conversion rate, because it's just like PPC. The only thing PPC can do is bring people into your listing. And so
true.
if you can go from I brought 10 people into my listing and one person bought, to I brought the same exact 10 people that I paid the same exact money for into my listing, and two of them converted, that's gonna like hugely improve everything. So going into Q4, you should really start looking at your conversion rate, and try and optimize. Now, here's a few actionable things, right? So we're not just giving like the broad strokes. Actionable stuff. You can use pickfu.com. I like to use Pickfu. It's pickfu.com. And
Yep.
I like to split test like the different images. So you have your main images and your rest of images. You can take your image and then your competitors' images, and you can show it to people and say which one would you choose and why. And based on you can get, it's $50 to get an answer from 50 people in 30 minutes, and they're all Amazon shoppers. And within 30 minutes, you'll know why people are gonna choose your product or not choose your product, and you can optimize the creative based on that. Now, if you tell me,
Hmm.
Mina, my main image, I can't change it because like the product is done, the packaging is done. Well, you actually can. I think you can change a lot of things. You can make it bigger, you can make it more HD, you can make it a 3D render, you can change the angle, you can also change some of the design. If it overall looks the same and when someone gets it in the mail, they're gonna think it's the same product, I think it's fine. I mean, it's a little bit gray
Hmm.
hat here, but I think it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Title, make sure you optimize your title for SEO. Reviews, make sure you have a strategy for getting reviews. I personally DM hundreds of people a day on Amazon asking them to try the product for free, and then eventually ask for a review. It is against terms of service because I'm incentivizing them to buy the product, or they're getting the product at an incentive. But it is what it is. That's what I do. So I'm open to everyone and transparent. Questions on the listing. I go to all of my competitors' questions and I extract their questions and I ask it on my listing and build a frequently asked questions. It is not against terms of service. You can use your buyer account to ask as many questions as you can on the listing, and basically create a frequently asked questions section. Enhanced brand content is the same thing. The same as the images. Try and improve it. You can also split test it in Manage My Experiments on Amazon, so you can create different versions and you can see which one is better. If you guys are like, oh man, like I would love to do all of this creative stuff Mina's talking about, but I don't have the budget. No Limit Creatives is $500 a month for unlimited creatives. You can literally do 100 creatives in a month, and it's $500. So it's like you can get all of this stuff done on the low at No Limit Creatives. Then I would look at like Amazon posts on the listing, add those. I would look at videos on the listing. You can add those, and then what else am I missing? If there's anything else, maybe coupons or anything else like that, just test all of that. Document your click through rate, document your conversion rate, and if anything you see has a positive impact on click through rate or conversion rate, keep it. Keep that factor. And again, as an engineer, I'm going to recommend that you do change one thing only at a time. I know this is going to be very exciting for you to change everything. Change one thing at a time. And the easiest way to do this is just go and look at your top three competitors and do like a checklist. What is everything that they have on their listing? Do I have it? Yes or no? And if you don't
Yep.
have it, and then now you have a list of things that you can work on one at a time. So that's the first thing in terms of improving your conversion rate, and your click through rate is going to massively impact your PPC. The second thing, which before we touch the PPC, is the improving your organic rank. So you can use PPC and use single keyword campaigns to improve your organic rank, because as you improve your organic rank, you're bringing more people into the listing, without spending any money. And so
Hmm.
when it all plays out, when it all balances out, your PPC plus your organic combined, you're gonna have like a profitable, or like a better, more profitable spend over sales, versus if you're fully dependent on just PPC and you're paying for every single visitor. So that's the second
Yeah.
thing I would invest in. And again, I mean, unless you want to do search find buy, which is against terms of service, the only other way is to just spend more money on ads, and like convert more times. Now, the thing that I've seen that's been working super effective that our team is now implementing for some people is influencer marketing. So
Yeah.
this is no keyword attached, but we've seen that as we hire even small micro influencers, and we don't even pay them money, we just like have a good relationship and talk to them and tell them to promote the product for free. As we've done that with micro influencers, and they've basically used their Amazon associates account or link to send to our listing, we've seen all organic rank go up. And it's
Wow.
strange as to why that happens, but I just think that Amazon really likes external traffic, and so it's favoring products that are driving external traffic. I've seen this happen on a bigger scale with like big influencers like Robert Downey Jr. and things like that. And but I mean, even at a small macro level, a brand like mine or yours or whatever, you can it'll be pretty effective. And I think if there's any a time to save some money on PPC and put it into influencer marketing, Q4 is the time, because PPC prices start becoming cutthroat, and this is a very nice way to increase your organic rank. It's not going to make you probably like amazing conversions, but it's going to help improve your organic rank to prepare you for like the big days: Prime Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday,
Hmm.
Christmas. And then the final thing is having a very rigid and like system for optimizing your PPC. So when we're trying to cut down any bad spend, what we're doing is we're trying to find exact and product targeting keywords, lower the bids if they have a high ACOS. To me, anything above 75% for my product is high. So
Hmm.
anything above 75% or anything more than $10 in no sales. For exact and product targeting, I'm going to lower the bids. And then for auto broaden phrase, same exact thing, 75% or $10 and spend and no sales, I'm going to add them as negatives, because I can't just lower the bid on auto broaden phrase, because it'll lower everything. And you can have some good performers there that you're going to lower. So instead of lowering the good performers, I just add negatives to the bad performers. And then if you're implementing any bid by placement, I would remove that if it's not working. If the ROAS doesn't clearly say it's a very strong ROAS, I would remove the bid by placement, because you could be overspending for the same keywords that you're going to show up for. And then find areas where you might be spending money where you shouldn't have to. For
Yep.
example, if you have a sponsor product ad and a sponsor brand ad on the same page, try removing that sponsor brand ad and see what happens. If you end up driving the same amount of traffic and spending less money because you no longer have that sponsor brand ad running, that could mean that you were just spending twice as much money on the same customers. Same thing if you're ranked organically very high and you have PPC. Again, I don't recommend this all the time, but test it. I always recommend testing. See what happens if you lower your PPC. Instead of being on the top of page one, you're now on the bottom of page one. So you have a top of page one organic, bottom of page one sponsored, and see if that lowers your cost, because maybe you're eliminating all the window shoppers. And still getting the same amount of customers. And so that's what I would do. I'd have a very rigid strategy, and like anything that exceeds any of these criteria, I would lower them or add them as negatives, with exception to keywords that are driving a majority of your sales. So if you go
Yeah.
into your search term report or your bulk sheet and you notice that a certain keyword is driving 10% of your sales, don't add that as a negative if it has 75% ACOS, because that might hurt your overall sales. So that's kind of the exception there. And then finally, during the peak times, the goal is to up to like maybe I would say maybe 1 week or 3 days, that range, build up and spend money up to that point. But once you get to those points, 3 days out of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, I would actually anything that you have like a top of search placement modifier or whatever, be
Hmm.
careful. And I would even lower the bids, where especially where you're ranked high organically, because you're going to get slaughtered by the amount of people coming onto the platform and spending a lot of money. So you might get
Yeah.
a lot more sales, but you don't want that to be offset by the amount of money you spend on ads. And obviously, Amazon loves spending your money on ads. So if you
Yep.
can basically be ranked well organically, and for everything you're ranked well organically, just drop all of the bids just for those days. It's not enough time for your ranking to go down, but you will get a lot more sales by that additional traffic on Amazon without all of the additional expenses. That's my Q4 kind of everything. Let's do a one pager on this and give it to everyone. This is my Q4 advice.
Yeah, that's great. And you kind of dove into this a little bit, but we had a question from the audience. And if you have any other questions from the audience, please ask. But basically, it's what's the best way to audit an Amazon account for PPC? So my response to that would be first check how much you're spending on keywords that generate no sales. So I download my search term report and I see, okay, if I'm spending more than $100, more than $50 on keywords that aren't producing any sales, that's a red flag to turn off. And I've done audits for an account within the last 30 days that they had $52,000 in spend toward keywords with zero sales. And
Wow.
that was 30% of their spend. So think about this. They were spending $150,000 per month, and then 50,000 of that was going toward keywords with zero sales. So that's the first thing I would check when doing an audit. And then look about my second thing is make sure you're looking at the amount you're spending toward other formats. Are you spending towards sponsor brand video? What's your performance rate on that? Do you have a better ACoS than sponsor brand video? Usually you will. Sponsor display, what's your performance on that? I check the other formats and see if there's any opportunity to scale the other formats because usually most of the time every brand puts money in sponsored products and that's it. They say, oh, that's it. That's all I need to do. But there's a lot of opportunities with all these other formats on Amazon since there's no competition for them, and it's usually very profitable to push those. So I would also look at their other formats that they're testing, and go with that. What are your thoughts, Mina?
Yeah, I mean, you covered really a lot of it. Some other things that I look at is like your campaign naming structure. Make sure that you have clear campaign names. I like to have like a product code and then the type of ad, sponsor product or brand or display, and then like auto, close match, loose match, complement substitutes. The reason for the campaign and where the keywords came from. So it's very
Yep.
easy for me to see things. So I like to see that everything is grouped in portfolios. Once I'm in the campaign, for campaigns with the really high ROAS, I like to see that there's bigger budgets. So if you have
Yeah.
a $50 budget on a 5x ROAS campaign, like scale that. I like to see single ad group in each of the campaigns. The reason is when I see multiple ad groups, I notice that sometimes the budget is only flowing to one ad group and not all of them evenly. Um,
Yep.
then I also look at too many keywords in a campaign. So if there's like 100 keywords or in an ad group, 100 keywords in an ad group, I'll just sort by spend or sort by sales. And if I notice that five or six of them are spending and making sales and the other ones aren't really making any sales, I would pause all of those and then take that as an opportunity to relaunch them in their own campaigns. That's generally kind of on top of what Victor already mentioned. So those are some things I would do. Placement reports are a good place to look to. If you're performing really well on some of the placements, I would double down on those
Mhm.
placements.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I want to take it to also when you talked about the main images. When it comes to main image testing, I don't think enough people are doing it. Um, I'm a big proponent of. I think a main image test should always be running
Yeah,
because
always.
like there's always some type of thing that you can implement. Like for supplement clients, you can put the powder outside or the pills outside of the bottle and put like a little thing there. That's an optimization, and usually that will increase sales by sometimes drastic numbers. We've seen by just increasing the size of like zooming in where there's less white space, that increased the sales by 30%. It's just like crazy numbers like that. By
Crazy.
just doing small main image, because that is all there is on Amazon. Like when people are looking through mobile, people might read the first two or three words on the title. That's about it. And everyone else is just looking at the main images. So if you have a dog toy and you have a golden retriever on the front of yours, like that's going to trigger the human mind and saying, "Hey, I have a golden retriever," and that might trigger more sales just naturally. So these are things that you're going to have to constantly test, and there should be always an A/B test on all your main images. That way, you can increase sales to the most possible during Q4.
Dude, absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. For me, main image testing, is probably like the most impactful, because number one, it affects click-through rate. And if you don't understand how it affects click-through rate, basically when you launch campaigns, all you're doing is showing up your products in the search, and you're getting a certain number of impressions. So you can measure those
Yeah.
impressions, and all you have to do is improve your click-through rate by 0.1%. And you'll notice that for the exact same ads you're running, you have significantly more people coming into the listing. Now, if you have for the same ads more people coming into the listing at the same conversion rate, then you're going to make more money. Now, if the conversion rate improves because of the main image, now you're making even more money. So
Yeah.
I think main image and Amazon, dude, Amazon does it for you. You have A/B testing, like go to manage my experiments and do a main image test, and literally Amazon will give you real data from real customers, and how your main image has performed, in the test. So main image one could have like a 30% conversion rate, and then main image two could have a 15% conversion rate,
Yeah.
and they just give you the numbers right there.
Yeah. Like Amazon gives you all this data, and especially when you have like PickFu and also the Amazon
Yeah,
testing tool, Amazon gives you this testing tool, and something you should always be utilizing at some level. It's so critical.
100%.
And when it comes down to the advertising, what we've been seeing so far on the advertising is sponsor brand videos, and then which is increasing in cost by quite a bit now recently, and then also sponsor display audiences. Those have been a really top performer historically. Sponsor display audiences have been performing like, oh, you almost get no click through rate, but they usually don't get your ROI back on sponsor display. But sponsor display audiences have been recently performing really well across all clients, especially when it comes to the retargeting capabilities. So that's one thing I would say to the audience, that sponsor display audiences have been doing really well on that side. Mina, is there any other either formats that you've seen been working, any other way you've been looking at the ads that have been working well? Is there any other tactics that you can think of that would be super valuable to the audience?
Yeah, the only thing is have a good if you're big enough, I would use DSP and have a good like layered approach. And so
Yeah,
first of all, before you ever start any DSP, you should create a table that looks like this. PPC spend, DSP spend, PPC sales, and then total sales, and then blended ROAS. So what that will do, or yeah, maybe have a column for like total ad spend. And so what that will do is you can actually see the effect of your DSP, where maybe you're spending $1,000 a day on PPC, and then whatever your total sales are 5,000 a day, and then you add an additional $1,000 a day in DSP. You don't want to look at your DSP numbers, because they're not going to be accurate. You want to look at your total sales numbers. So if you add
yeah,
$1,000 a day on DSP, and your total sales go from 5,000 to 8,000, then you know that the DSP added like that additional 3,000. And so your blended ROAS would be 4x. Instead of, it used to be 5x with PPC. However, it's generating more money, and that means more dollar amount in profit. And so the way that I would also layer DSP is I would have a loyalty funnel if you're a product that can be repurchased. So basically, everyone who's purchased in the past but hasn't purchased from you in like the last 90 days, then I would maybe or an upsell or a cross sell if you're a product that doesn't fit that bill. If you're like a one-time purchase, then above that, I would have a retargeting segment, which is basically targeting everyone who viewed our product but hasn't purchased, or hasn't purchased from our competitors either. Then we go a little bit above the funnel, like one more funnel segment up the funnel, which is either competitor targeting, or complementary product targeting, or in market, or demographic or behavioral. All of these are ways to bring new to brand customers into your funnel, and then start retargeting them with your retargeting advertising. And I always like to look at the funnel completely blended, anything above loyalty. So retargeting blended with the upper funnel. So what is your total ad spend on retargeting and everything else above it, and what's your total sales on retargeting and everything above it, and that should be your effective ROAS. And anything above retargeting, the main KPI is ROAS. Anything above that, the main KPI is click-through rate and detail page view rate, because we just want to bring people into our funnel. We're not worried about ROAS. The retargeting will take care of the ROAS. And I've seen that we saw a client on average was doing 40 50K a month in 2020 2021. we scaled their ads and we added DSP, and now they're doing 140 to 150 a month on average, 2021, 2022. So DSP really adds over time. And I mean, you can see this effect over a year's period, right? But over time, it really starts bringing a lot more new people into your funnel segment, or into your funnel overall.
Yeah, and it really comes down to if you're trying to be a brand or a seller. So that's when you have to make the decision for, because DSP is a very big brand play, and that's where you have to say like, hey, if you're a seller, then you can just focus on the Amazon ads, and it's you don't have to really like worry about your brand. But when you're trying to be a brand, it's a very long-term play. So when people like see it and they have brand recognition, and that's where like external traffic and everything else comes into play, that's really a brand play. That's a like longer term. So
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. And that's basically what all I had on my plate. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you communicate before Prime Day number 2 or before Q4 kind of starts? Is there anything else that you kind of wanted to make sure you communicate today?
Yeah, just that I'm noticing that Amazon is more and more becoming a platform where you can no longer put things up and expect them to work. You really have to become a good marketer. So of course you're already on top of all of your supply chain, right? And your product development, all of this stuff. But once you step foot on Amazon, you also have to be really good at continuously testing to optimize your conversion rate, and continuously testing your ads to optimize performance. One metric I would really start, I have an analytics sheet, you guys, if anyone messages me, I'll give it to you. It's a template on Google Sheets. I think everyone should be tracking their cost per session, because that's the cost of driving traffic. And so if you're constantly measuring your cost per session and you're measuring your conversion rate, you can actually understand how much it's costing you to make a conversion. If that number is decent, if it's low enough, you're fine. You can continue to push and scale your ads. If that number is not fine, then you either need to make a decision. Do you need to increase your conversion rate so that number can drop, or do you need to increase your organic ranking so that number can drop, or do you need to be more meticulous in shaving off the every single dollar off of your PPC, where you can save money, where it's like spending money and not generating enough return on investment? And so
Yeah.
that's what I would do. It's no longer, just like, let's go on Amazon, let's do some SEO, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna make money. I mean, it's like trying to get into Whole Foods, or trying to get into, there's so many people shopping there. It's super competitive, and everyone's always improving. I look at my listings, and every time I change them, 6 months later, all of my competition has already outperformed me. And so that tells you,
Mhm.
in every 6 months, competitors are really revamping their stuff and trying to beat their competitors. So that you should be doing that every 3 months max.
100%. 100%. Yeah, that's super helpful. Mina, thank you so much for joining today. Love to tell the audience, please tell them how to find you, whether it's your LinkedIn, how to get to your website, how to get in contact with you.
Sure, yeah. So website is triviumco.com, triviumco.com. And if you want to, we do a free audit and consultation strategy, whatever. Basically, we'll look at all of your accounts and tell you exactly how we would fix everything, and exactly how you can do it for yourself. So if you just want to do it without using us, and then from there, if you want to message me, Instagram is the best, at the Mina Elias, Minaeelias, and then Facebook and LinkedIn are Mina Elias. I drop a lot of knowledge on LinkedIn, very like actionable PPC stuff. So if you want to follow me there, you're gonna definitely enjoy it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. And thank you everyone for watching. This is the Failures and Wins podcast. Thank you for listening.